Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Ohio State Buckeyes Collins Show. I'm your host, Ryan Stano. Garrison's having a little bit of technical difficulties right now, so he'll be joining in shortly. But anyway, we wanted to get this show started and up before the Orange Bowl plays. Penn State and Notre Dame are playing. So want to make sure, we could maximize the questions we could get, and also so you guys can maximize your viewership of the potential opponent for Ohio State in the national championship. That is assuming Ohio State wins tomorrow night. So this is your show, so please put in your comments what you'd like to hear us talk about. There's a few pieces of notes that we wanted to hit as well. The Ohio State basketball game will also be starting here in a few minutes. We'll keep you updated on that if that's something that you are interested in. I know we're all Ohio State fans in here. I'm definitely a Buckeye basketball fan as well. So I can keep you up to date on their game against top 15 Oregon. So let's see if we can beat the Ducks on the hardwood just like we did on the field. But the first thing that I know we wanted to hit was some more transfer portal news, and it wasn't even necessarily with someone that Ohio State has added or someone that Ohio State has lost to the portal. It's actually someone who is now reportedly linked to Ohio State, or at least is one of the favorites to land him, and that is Georgia quarterback Carson Beck. He has reportedly entered the transfer portal after he went ahead and originally declared for the draft. Now he's declared for the transfer portal. It's kind of a strange situation. And it's very strange that he decided to declare and then not declare, end up going to the transfer portal. Now, he could probably make more money staying in college this year because he was probably going to be a third-day pick, maybe fourth, fifth round pick with how he played this year. But I'm not entirely sure why Ohio State would be on the list of teams, but according to On3's Pete Nakos, he is considering, or at least Ohio State should be considered one of the favorites. It's them, Miami, and Texas Tech. Miami seems like the clear favorite right now, which, in my opinion, is much better. I don't know if I would want Carson Beck to come to Columbus. I understand he would have more experience than any quarterback that Ohio State has on the roster for next season, because they would have Julian Sayin and Tavian St. Clair and Lincoln Kienholz as the only scholarship quarterbacks next season, with Howard going to the NFL and Devin Brown and Aaron Nolan in the transfer portal. Nolan's already enrolled in South Carolina, so he's not coming back, and Brown hasn't officially declared anywhere yet, but we'll see where he ends up. So adding Beck would give them some experience, in the Ohio State quarterback room, but based on how he's played this year, I wouldn't be that excited. He had just under 3,500 passing yards. He had 28 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. And he looked bad in a lot of the big games they were playing, especially the two games against Texas. So it's
Hey, Ryan, can you hear me?
Hey, Garrison. I cannot hear you yet, so I know you've been having some technical issues, so we'll let you get that figured out here before you come back. But as far as Beck is concerned, it's a funny story because he actually played better last year with a different offensive coordinator. He had fewer interceptions. His passing yards were much higher. He had almost 4,000 passing yards last year under Mike Bobo. And adding him to this Ohio State offense next year, which he would be surrounded by some really good wide receivers still. His wide receivers at Georgia's are the worst collection of wide receivers, quite frankly, in the Power Four. They lead the P4 in drops. And we saw that in their game against Notre Dame. I mean, they had some big-time drops in that game, and it kind of cost them later on. Their offense couldn't get any traction because Beck didn't trust his receivers. So perhaps that could be part of the reason why he was so bad this year. He didn't really trust his receivers, so he couldn't really sling it, as much as he would like to, because he didn't think his guys could come down with it. And if he came to Ohio State, that wouldn't be a problem. He would have Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, and Brendan Ennis to throw to. Those are three pretty darn good options. Mylan Graham would also be a fourth guy. They've got guys all over the place. So that would be the positive way of looking at it, is if they did decide to grab Beck, they could have a guy who has played for national championship, who's, won a national championship, and someone who could give the Buckeyes more of a bridge quarterback, because obviously next year would be his final year of eligibility. It would give Sayin and Tavian St. Clair a chance to learn a little bit more about the offense, feel a little bit more comfortable before they would go out there. And let's face it, neither one of them, Sayin has minimal reps. The one throw we've seen him, the one pass we've seen him throw in recent games was that kind of wounded duck against Tennessee, which didn't inspire a whole lot of confidence. But again, it was cold. The game was out of hand. It didn't really matter. In my opinion, the Buckeyes would be better served keeping their quarterback room with Sayin and St. Clair as the two guys fighting for the starting job. If they want to bring in a veteran, kind of like they did a few years back, but with chugging off from West Virginia with and also with Christian Gebbia from Oregon State as kind of a veteran backup, kind of break in case of emergency, break glass case of emergency quarterback, that's fine. But I don't think Beck is going to be a guy that Ohio State should really pursue. Sounds like Miami's, really into taking him after Cam Ward, so hopefully it'll be out of Ohio State's hands. That was really the big piece of transfer portal news that came out. And again, this is your guys' show. If you want to hear us talk about any specific aspect of the Texas game, please drop it in here. Would love to talk about what you guys want to talk about. I can also go ahead and drop the link into the chat so we can take some of your calls here as well. And I know Garrison's working here on getting in with his technical problems. So he's having some microphone problems, but he'll be in here shortly. But as far as the game goes tomorrow, it's good that there is no delay. I know there was some question on whether or not the game was indeed going to be delayed because of the weather. The weather is not great. It's snowing pretty good out there. Dallas is right there on that line of snow, rain, and wintry mix. And they're calling for now. The snow totals have fallen, which is good. They were initially calling for, maybe 7 to 9 inches, and now it's dropped to 2 to 4, which is a lot better, especially for a city like Dallas who doesn't have the infrastructure to really deal with the winter weather. So the snowplows are out, so it's going to make things a little bit easier for fans to get to the game, but prices have dropped already. Tickets were going for $500, $600, $700 in some spots, now they're dropping to $200. So if you're looking for a last minute ticket, they're relatively cheap for a college football playoff game. So that would be, if you live in the Dallas area, or if you're know someone in the Dallas area who wants to get in for cheap, that would be your time to do it. So the good news is the game will not be delayed. Ohio State will be having to face a Texas offensive line that has gotten their best offensive lineman back now. Cameron Williams, their tackle, starting right tackle, will now play in this game. He missed the game against Arizona State with an injury, and now he has returned. So that'll make things a little bit harder for Ohio State on the edge. But with how good the defensive line has been, I'm not really sure that adding Williams is going to make that much of a difference for the Texas offensive line. Ohio State's done a really good job of getting some pressure from their front four and not really having to blitz. In fact, I saw on social media that they only blitzed 3 times against Oregon, which is nuts for the fact that they had 8 sacks. So if you can generate pressure without needing to blitz and without needing to commit a lot of guys to the box, that's going to signal good things for Ohio State. Now, obviously, they know that they're going to have to stop the run in order to win this game. We already talked about Dimitri and Witten, how good he is. And Garrison has
yes
returned.
or no? Yes or no?
Still can't hear you, so you're probably going to have to call in. Use your phone as your mic. That'll probably work.
I'm going to.
But anyway, the Texas rushing game is going to have to be – it's going to be the focal point of their game. That's how they're going to try to move the ball because they don't fully trust Quinn Ewers. Let's be honest. Steve Sarkisian does not fully trust what Quinn Ewers can bring to the game. He is not someone that they have been able to trust as far as making big throws in close games. I mean, they blew a 16-point lead in the previous bowl game, Arizona State. Part of that is because of the lack of faith in Ewers to be able to pick up intermediate yardage on the, through the air. Because at that point, Arizona State was just stuffing the run. They were packing the box, and they were forcing Texas to beat them through the air, and they couldn't do it until the double overtime period, really until the first overtime period, because that's when that 4th and 13 prayer happened that cost Arizona State the game. Other than that, they really haven't been able to really do much.
It still isn't working, is it?
Still can't hear you. I don't know what's going on, but unfortunately, we can't hear you guys. So as long as you guys can hear me, that's the good thing. So I think he's going to try to fix some audio issues here. But I mean, back to their offensive line. Their offensive line is solid. I wouldn't say it's great. And honestly, a lot of people thought Oregon's offensive line was better than Texas' offensive line coming into this game. That's how it is. Up front, Texas's defensive line is the story. And we've talked about that at length, about how Texas's defensive line makes it hard for you to run in between the tackles. They are a team that can really make it tough for you to gain consistent yards up the middle. Now, as we've seen in each of the last couple of matchups between Tennessee and Oregon, the game plan hasn't been to just run in between the tackles. The tackles has been the game plan has been to throw the ball and not have any sort of worry with the run game. They're basically throwing to set up the pass. That's what they're doing. And as long as they can do that, again, using Jeremiah Smith, then I think they're going to be perfectly fine. They should not have any problems with the game. With the game plan as far as that goes. It's strange because everyone knew Ohio State was just going to come out and force feed Jeremiah Smith the ball early against Oregon. And that's what continued to happen. They basically moved him around the formation. They took advantage of Oregon when they played man coverage. And they were able to make it difficult for Oregon to pin him down. And when they did cover Jeremiah Smith, they still hit Emeka Egbuka on that big play. Carnell Tate was lightly used, but he can still be used. He's still a weapon. So I don't think that this is going to be a game that Ohio State is going to – they're not going to do the Michigan game. The Michigan thing where they just try to run it up the gut right in between the defensive tackles for no success, that's clearly not the game plan. So I expect Ohio State to open it up on the outside, use Smith's speed, get him in different positions on the field. He can be used as a slot guy. Line him up close to the line of scrimmage, have him in a bunch formation where he can get lost with the Oregon defenders, have miscommunication, but just get him open in any way possible. And even if he's not open, and if it's a contested ball, throw it to him, he's going to come down with it. He is better than any Texas cornerback there is. So that's not going to be the issue. Now, running the ball is something Ohio State's still going to have to do. Like, they have to stay balanced. They didn't really – I mean, in the second half of the Oregon game, they really dialed down their game plan. They ran it more, but they ran it more in sort of a vanilla way. They didn't really want to show anything because the game was out of hand at that point. They didn't really need to get deeper into their bag to have more creative run plays to score points because the game was over at that point. They were up, 34. They were up 41-15. They didn't really need to show a whole lot. So I expect them to have more creative running plays available to them in this game as well. And if there's anything you guys want to talk about, I dropped the link there in the chat if you guys want to call in, or if you want to hear me and when Garrison gets his technical issues figured, talk about anything specific, please let me know. Drop it in the chat. Would love to have you guys. This is your guys' show. Would love to talk to you guys more. So as far as the offensive line for Ohio State, I need to give them more credit, even more than what I have been over the last couple shows, because I rewatched the film last night from the Oregon game, and they were moving guys. And they were moving guys while still shuffling guys. They were moving Tegra Shabola out of the lineup. They were putting in Luke Montgomery at left guard and having Ciravelli over to the right. And when Shabola came back in, he was still pretty good. The rotation, I was very skeptical of it to start the playoff, because the word rotation when it comes to an offensive line is not something you really want to hear, but it has worked out. I give credit to Ryan Day and for that staff, specifically Justin Fry. He needs to get more credit for being able to get those guys ready to play with all of the injuries that they've had to deal with. And so it's been very impressive to see how they have been able to respond, in the face of adversity. And they really, they moved Tennessee. They moved Oregon. Those are two really good football teams. And to be able to move them and protect Will Howard at the same time was extremely impressive. So that's something that they're going to need to continue to do in this game. I expect them to. Texas's defensive line is the strength of their defense, but I don't expect them to have that, I don't expect Texas's defensive line to wreck things like Ohio State's defensive line wrecked Oregon. Let me say that. And as far as me and Garrison had talked about what our best and worst case scenarios were. And I don't see how my worst case scenario happens. Garrison seems like he's back. You back?
Yeah,
Garrison?
can you hear me?
We can hear you. We can hear you a little bit.
There we go. We're gonna deal with this for right now.
Yeah, he's gonna have to talk a little loud though, because it's.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right, cool.
Well, you heard me talking here about specifically the defensive line of Texas and how Ohio State's gonna have to attack them. The defensive line is supposed to be their strength of their team. Mm-hmm. I just don't see how Ohio State is going to have that much of a problem with them with the way they've been calling plays. What do you think?
I would tend to agree. I believe that even though Texas defensive line they're very fast. They have elite edge rusher as a freshman, as they do receiver in Simmons. But regardless of that, I talked about it yesterday on the Scarlet and Blue show about how Chip Kelly and Ryan Day have, used Ryan Day's philosophy with the scheme of Chip Kelly and how they've been able to move the offensive line around. They've been able to get them moving, whether it be on the boundaries in order to get Will Howard out there and passing on the run out of the pocket. More gap scheme, more pulling, I think. And of course, that's some of it's probably just, dressing on the salad, but it's working. It's working right now. And I think that, I think we could rest on knowing now that we've gone against two of the best, easily two top 10 defensive lines in college football, and they've done well. Yeah. And they got better the second time. So I wouldn't necessarily say I'm worried. Is it something to watch? Of course it is. But it's not something that I'm really worried about. Yeah,
I would agree with you. And, you mentioned also for Ohio State basketball fans, it's 10-9 at the under 16 timeout, here in the first half. But
we'll leave my basketball fandom out of this. I don't worry about it.
Yeah, I figured I'd give some updates here while that's happening. Hey, you know what? Beat the Ducks on the court just like we beat them on the field. That's what I said. So
yeah, there you go.
That'd be nice. But, the offensive line, was giving them a lot of credit because I did rewatch the game last night, and I specifically focused on the offensive line because I wanted to see how well they were doing in the trenches, how they were moving guys around, and they did a really darn good job of pushing Oregon back at almost every single play. Specifically in the run game. That's really where I was focused on, and I focused on the guards. I really wanted to see how Veld, Shabola, and Luke Montgomery did in that rotation.
Mm-hmm.
There were a couple plays that I thought, could have gone better, but overwhelmingly, I mean, A+ for all three of them. They played great. They were pulling effectively. They were able to, they were quite frankly able to do what they needed to do to get guys back in the secondary and also protect Will Howard in the passing game. So they did their job.
No, most definitely. And again, there's been guys on this offensive line that have been shining as of late. We've mentioned Luke Montgomery plenty of times now. Just the play he's given this team has been exceptional. Even on the right side, I mean, the right side of the offensive line before this season even started was a point of conversation for everyone in Buckeye Nation. Throughout the season, they've gotten better, and it's nice to see.
Yeah, I know I've given Justin Fry a fair amount of grief on the show, but he deserves a lot of credit for being able to get those guys together. And I've actually been very pleased with what he's been able to do with these guys, and I honestly have hope for more in the future. I do. And I think how his performance has been with the offensive line over the last 2 or 3 games, I think it saved his job, quite frankly. I think he's coming back. So we got a comment here. What is the best 4-game stretch of the year? That's a good question, Aaron. That's a really good question. The best 4-game sustained stretch, I would probably have to say it wasn't. The thing is, you can't really pick any of those games early just because of the competition that they had. It's not like they were playing, Texas every week. In my opinion, the best 4-game stretch is the stretch where it was the Penn State through IU game. So Penn State, Purdue, Northwestern, IU. That's, they beat Penn State 2013 at Penn State. Shut out Purdue 45-0, beat Northwestern 31-7 at Wrigley Field, and then took down a top 5 Indiana team again, 38-15. So they played 2 top 5 teams in those 4 games. That, to me, is their best 4-game stretch. What do you say?
Without a doubt. I think that's the easy one to point to because there's not a loss in between there, of course. I thought that with all the struggles we were having, start with Penn State, coming up that Nebraska game where the offensive line was not shored up. It most definitely wasn't against Penn State. That was Donovan Jackson's first game playing left tackle. And going against Abdul Carter is not the best first matchup for a guy who hasn't played tackle since high school. But I think that was a very important stretch for that offensive line at that time, just in seeing what they could do, and especially for Donovan Jackson. And just whereas right now, I mean, I don't think I'm being crazy by saying this. He's playing he's already an All-American guard. He's playing like an All-American tackle right now. So
he's playing great, and I think you mentioned this on one of the previous shows. He's made himself a lot of money being able to switch over to left tackle and show how versatile he is, because we know how much the NFL loves guys who can swing from position to position, and for him to be able to do this, it's pretty darn impressive. So I know we've talked a lot about a lot of different aspects.
I'm sorry, you touched on Carson Beck, right?
Yes, I did. But let me hear your thoughts on Carson Beck.
Stay the hell away.
I agree. That's what I said.
And I highly doubt. I mean, Berm came out and said that. I'm sure you said that.
I know. Berm said that wasn't going to happen, but he also said the same thing about Saiyan.
He did. He did.
So
well, we are all allowed to be wrong. We are all allowed to be wrong. I am going to take Berm for his word on this. And I just don't see.
It wouldn't make a whole lot of sense to me, to be honest with you. And look, I'll
tell you where it makes sense. I'll tell you where it makes sense.
Well, it's because I don't have experience.
Well, Well, that's for sure. I think where it helps, I think we will both agree that if Carson Beck was to come, Julian Sand is out. He's leaving.
I think you're probably right.
Then I think you know that you're banking all in on Tavian.
I don't think it would be well. You know what? I won't say that. I was about to say I don't think it would be smart to just bank on the true freshman like that, but you might be doing it anyway because next year, right now, or at least as of right now, the plan is to have the winner between St. Clair and Sayin be the starter next year.
Right.
So, and I know you missed this point. Beck did have the worst collection of receivers in P4. I mean, these guys led the division in drops.
That's fair.
So you surround him with guys like Carnell Tate, Jeremiah Smith, Brandon Innes, Mylan Graham. Like, he can't be much worse. But I didn't like his decision making. He had some bad decisions. And that's what concerns me the most. For a guy who's played as much football as he has, a guy who's won a national championship, you would have thought he would have made more refined decisions. And I thought, in all honesty, there were a few games where he almost threw him out of them. I mean, that Georgia Tech game, he was making some poor decisions. I understand the offensive line didn't play super well in that game either. But, and obviously both games against Texas, he gets hurt in the first half. I'm not going to, the first half he didn't look good. Let's face it. I'm really hoping Miami just takes him off our hands and we don't have to worry about it, quite frankly.
That would be beautiful. That would be beautiful.
Yeah. So, back to what I was saying about the Texas game, there's one aspect that I want to talk to you about that we haven't covered yet. And we saw this in the very first play in the Rose Bowl. G. Scott leaked out for a, 30-yard pass, and it was something that Oregon wasn't ready for. Do you think that the tight ends could get more involved in this game as a different wrinkle for something that Texas hasn't seen? Because I think they might.
I think that even going back to the Urban Meyer era, the tight ends at Ohio State by fan bases across the country get overlooked because we don't emphasize them simply because we don't have to. I would say last year was probably one of the first year in a long time we feature our tight end a lot. A lot of that had to do with because usually the tight end is it's a comfort zone for a quarterback, and last year that's what it was for Kyle McCord. Outside of having Marv,
yeah, I mean,
but I a lot of people forget that G. Scott Jr. was one of the top rated wide receivers coming out of high school. He's packed on a lot of weight. He's a very big guy, but he has really good receiving skills.
He does.
I believe in that first game, that first play against Oregon, they just didn't think the first play of the game would go to him. They just didn't
honestly,
think that.
Why would they? I mean, Ohio State hasn't shown that on tape all year. Yeah.
Exactly. And so it was a great play. You bring someone over in motion. You got trips over there. I think Jeremiah ran out deep on a fly route. I think maybe it was Emeka that went to the flat, and then you have G. Scott just out there wide open. And I think this is a game. Well, we talked about about Carnell Tate, about Carnell Tate, and shout out to Paris Johnson for dating.
I was gonna say that's probably why it's on your mind.
Yeah. Big win, bro. Big win. But I think G. Scott has a part to play in this game. He's been very good blocking also this year. But his receiving skills, they don't get shown a lot. But please believe, he's probably as good as most tight ends in the country. He just doesn't get featured. Yeah,
and to your point, he came into the program as a wide receiver, and then he saw the room, was like, "Hey, I don't think I'm going to get enough playing time here. It's better for my college football career if I bulk up and move to tight end." And that's what he's done, and he's turned out to be a pretty good one.
Program guy. That's a program guy right there.
Yeah, you're right. Program guy. I did not think he was going to be as good of a blocker as he is, just because I wasn't sure how he was going to be able to bulk up enough, get the
Mm-hmm.
strength that he needed to be a Big Ten tight end and
Right.
excel at that end of the at that end of the field as far as blocking goes. But he's done a good job. He deserves credit, and I wouldn't be shocked if he caught a touchdown in this game. I'm not predicting that. I'm just saying it wouldn't be shocking because, like you mentioned, it would be something that would be not expected from Ohio State because they don't feature the tight end. So Texas, it's not on film for them to see. So why not throw it out there? We've talked about how Chip Kelly's just going to go out being aggressive, and if they lose, so be it. This could be another aggressive call.
I went to so I wasn't able. I don't think I didn't bring these two on. I didn't have these on Monday for our show. But I want to bring some statistics to you, and some like I have about 5,000 of them. But I'm gonna bring you five of them or so left, and get your thoughts on them. So Ohio State's 72% in field goal percentage. Texas is 64th. Do you think at any point in this game that is going to come to a head?
I don't know. The thing is with Ohio State, they score a lot of the points outside the red zone just because they're so explosive. So I don't know if that's going to be that big of a deal, at least for an Ohio State's offensive standpoint.
Okay. Now, sticking to that, think about Texas kicking game. So, as I'm sure you know, Texas's offense, their red zone offense scoring is 108th in the country.
It's real bad, real bad.
That's you wouldn't think a team like Texas would be that bad at that. And of course, Ohio State's second in the country in red zone defense, right behind Texas defense, actually. So, with that being known, and I guess this is more of a thought I have, but it's one of the reasons why it's been very difficult for me to even have Texas being competitive in this game. I'm actually thinking about boosting my score for another 8 points from 30 to 23.
Yeah.
Because of this. Texas is going to need to get big plays in this game. Ohio State doesn't give that up. They have one time this year they've given up big plays, just one time.
And then once that happened, they rebuilt the defense to make sure it would never happen again.
Never was the same. And so in Texas this season, they average 70 plays a game. They usually have to drive the ball down the field. I don't think that's a recipe to beat Ohio State or to score on Ohio State. And when you add that on the kicking aspect of it, where do you think Texas gets their points?
I think they get their points. Look, I do think Ohio State, at least early on in the season, they had issues with scripted drives.
Mm-hmm.
And, the first drive of the game. That has not been the case in the last two games. But early on, the points they would give up would be in the first quarter, right off the bat, because they weren't so good with being able to deal with scripted drives. And that's how Texas has scored the majority of their points. A lot of their points have been early, and that's because they've had a lot of success with their scripted drives right out of the bat. So I think that's maybe how they get their points. I can see them scoring 7 points early, but I mean, after that, it might come in garbage time, because I think you're right. I don't think Quinn Ewers, especially if they stick with Quinn Ewers throughout this entire game, which the more I think about it, the more I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think you're going to be able to lead sustained drives down the field and get those big chunks of play you were talking about.
Right. And I mean, like I said, I'm literally with stats right now that I've written down. Just adding on to that, because if you want to have sustained drives, I mean, this has been a topic of discussion. Texas running the ball. So I found this, and so Wisner, right? He averages negative 0.01 EPA per rush. Blue averages negative 0.06. Now, everyone at home, just so you can get a grasp of these numbers, Quinshon Judkins averages 0.05 and Trayvon averages 0.24. If Ohio State being what I believe to be just on forget the stats. I think it's the best rush defense in the country. Like, I mean that on every level, from D tackle to safety. I don't know how they run the ball, and then dude, I'm tempted to say they don't get to 20 points. I'm very tempted.
I've already predicted that with our
Yeah,
earlier prediction. I said it was 35-17, so you don't need to pull my arm on that, twist my arm on that.
It's not because, and I want to make sure I emphasize this. It's not because Texas is a bad team. I think it's a damn good team. All season, I've thought that Ohio State, Oregon, and Texas were the 3 best teams in the country.
Yeah.
It's just that when I see what I see, I just don't know what they do.
And that's the thing. And Texas has a little bit of what Ohio State struggled with this year, their consistency. They don't have the consistent performances from their top guys on a week-to-week basis. And quite frankly, Ohio State didn't have that until these last 2 games. And, we think that they can replicate that for a third time just because we've seen it in back-to-back environments, first at home and now in a neutral side environment against the top team in the country. So
it's hard to do.
So we think they can replicate it. And Texas is looking just to have just one of those games, where they can really put an A-plus game out there on film. Because last week, the first half of the Oregon game, that might have been one of the best halves of football I've ever seen from anybody.
Right.
So, I mean, if Texas, again, like you said, I don't think Texas is a bad team. I just think this is one of the bad matchups for them.
Right.
I think they'd be better suited going against Penn State or Notre Dame, quite frankly.
All right, so I have more for you. So FPI has predicted every single winner so far this playoff. It's been right every single time.
That doesn't mean it's a good metric.
Yes. Why do you think FPI favors Texas right now?
Well, okay. Besides the network who created that metric, I'll leave that aside. But I do think they overinflate Texas's schedule because they played in the SEC, and as we've seen so far through bowl season, that doesn't mean jack. The SEC is an average conference this year, so it is what it is. They're not going to be able to. They don't respect some of the lower opponents that Ohio State's played as much. They don't respect Michigan State or Purdue, and they prop up, Kentucky and Vanderbilt, teams like that. So I think that's probably where that FPI lies, if I'm being honest.
Okay. I think. Yeah, that's all I have for you.
Yeah, those are all the stats? Okay, all right. I know you had the whole notepad.
Oh, yeah, and Quinn's been sacked 27 times this season.
Yeah, and not all of that is on the offensive line. Let's be clear.
No.
Quinn holds onto the ball for a little bit. He tries to hold on and make some plays that he probably shouldn't. And I hope Ohio State takes advantage of that. And one of the key aspects of having Quinn as the quarterback as opposed to someone like Dylan Gabriel, or even if they were to have like an Arch Manning out there, Cody Simon doesn't need to be a spy. Like, they can actually use him in blitzes.
That's a good point, Ryan.
Or coverage. They can drop him back. They don't need to have that extra guy in the box because Quinn, I mean, he's like mobile enough, but he's not a guy who's going to tuck it and run it on a regular basis. And that ankle has been bothering him all year long. We don't know how healthy that is at this point. So I think that's an added element to the defense that, people are kind of forgetting.
By the way, for all you gambling degenerates like I am, right now, Ohio State in the third quarter is -1.5 plus 108. That's free money.
Yeah.
That's free money.
And whatever the first quarter spread is, hammer Ohio State. I'll just say that.
Yeah, right now, yeah. Let me see. What is it right now?
I think the line is still 6, which is frustrating because I got it at 6.5 and there was a big rush on it, and now I'm annoyed.
Yeah, right now, so the first half right now is Ohio State 3.5.
Oh, that's a hammer. Come on.
Wait,
that's disrespectful.
Yeah. I would definitely.
I don't want this to seem like we are disrespectful to Texas, but this is the point. This is the point right here.
Yeah.
Texas hasn't seen an offense like Ohio State all season. He's right. Like that's correct. When Ohio State's clicking on all cylinders like this, there's no one who can beat them. No one. And if, like I mentioned before, though, the consistency is the key. They've been able to keep that over the last couple of games. Are they going to be able to keep that here for this third game? We'll see. They seem locked in from everything I've seen. Everything Ryan Day said, they seem locked in. So hopefully they can keep being locked in.
Dude, there's some like what isn't it right? Why isn't it right now? Is over under 64.5. Will Howard's at 10.5.
I would probably take the under on that. Actually, I don't think they're going to use him a whole lot. Now, Wisner, that's a good number. That's a good number. I don't. That's close. Yeah. 64.5 is a good measured number. I don't know if he goes.
Yeah, because I'm guessing the sacks are probably playing to that.
Yeah. I know we've got.
Hey.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I was gonna say, Pete, call in. I haven't talked to you in a while, buddy.
Well, we do have someone queued up, but he's got a big old M Michigan there. I'm not sure if
let him in.
You know this person. Do you want me to let him in? You know who they are?
We'll find out. I can't see him, but let him in. Let's see who it is.
It's a King Bronco Harris. Do you know who that is?
No, but I'm very fascinated to find out. I really want to find out.
All right. I will warn you now. If there is Michigan trolling, I will just immediately remove you. Just so we're clear on this. But we'll go ahead and let you in. What's going on?
Hey, y'all hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
How you guys doing?
Good, yourself?
Doing well. How about yourself?
I'm not too bad. Obviously, I'm a Michigan fan. I just wanted to ask y'all, first of all, obviously we beat y'all ass again this year, but my question is, if y'all do win it all, which I think y'all probably will, where do y'all rank this title relative to 2014 and 2002? Because I don't think there's any way y'all can make the argument it's better. I know that maybe like the path to victory was more difficult. Like, look, beating 4 teams in a row like Texas and Penn State or Notre Dame, and then Oregon would be impressive. There's no doubt, but I don't think that you can put it in the same category as 2014 or 2002. That's my question: where y'all would rank it if y'all do end up winning it.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good question. Garrison, I'll let you take it first.
Yeah. So, well, man, I agree with you. It would be a great feat. It really would. But when you talk about like the 2002 championship, with Jim Tressel, Mark D'Antoni, who had defensive coordinator, Maurice Clarett, true freshman running back out of Ohio, like just all that happening, and then you're facing, you go 12-0, and you did it the hard way. You probably should have lost a couple games on the way. The game against Purdue with Holy Buckeye, and then you go into that game against a studded Miami team. You talk about Willis McGahee, Calvin Winslow Jr.,
Andre Johnson.
Yeah, dude.
I mean, just keep naming them.
The list goes on, dude, and it's hard. That win, that championship win, sparked what you see today. I think it sparked the most dominant era of Ohio State football. And then 2014. You're talking, you got SEC dominance going rabid across the country every year in college football. You have you have Urban Meyer in his second year. Mind you, he went undefeated the year before, but wasn't able to play for a national championship or a bowl game at that. We couldn't go to the Motor City Bowl game if we wanted to. And then, you go on this wild ride. You win 59-0 against Wisconsin, the Big Ten championship. And then you have Nick Saban in Alabama. And everybody's picking you to lose. Everyone's expecting you to lose. And you go out there, you win the game. Mind you, man, there was a point in that game where it looked like Ohio State was dominating Alabama. There was a point in that game when it looked like that.
Whole first half, they were moving the ball better than Alabama was.
Oh yeah, it could have gone to 3 scores easily. And then you get to a point in the game where I think in the fourth quarter, we had less than like 5 yards at some point. And then you had Ezekiel Elliott go 85 yards to the heart of the South, and then you go against Oregon's still the greatest team ever, and their Heisman winner quarterback, and you smack them around. It doesn't go above those. It just doesn't.
I agree with you. I mean, obviously winning a national title in any year is sweet, but as far as like ranking them between 2014, 2002, I mean, the 2002, the thing is, no one saw that coming because it was Jim Tressel's second year, and they had just come off they were like 8-6, or not 8-6, 8-4 in the regular season.
8-4, yeah.
Then they lost the bowl game to be 8-5. Like they lost the Outback Bowl, South Carolina. So it was not something that anyone saw coming. And then just to have them win their games the way that they did with defense. And I mean, they're off. I mean, Michael Jenkins, still an all-time great Ohio State wide receiver. He was like their only consistent weapon that they use. I mean, Chris Gamble going both ways, also special teams. He just couldn't come off the field. It was Travis Hunter before Travis Hunter was out there.
Played every game in that national championship. Every down in that national championship he played. Yeah,
every down. Mike Nugent, one of the greatest Ohio State kickers there is. And to beat that studded Miami team, we named the names. I mean, Andre Johnson, Kellen Winslow, Sean Taylor, Antrell Roll, I think, was on that team too.
Antrell Roll.
I mean, the list goes on and on for how many guys. I think Vince Wilfork, I don't remember he was on that team the year before, but
Vince was on that team. Who was the linebacker was
Jeremy Shockey. I mean, they were really, really good. So
I can't think of that linebacker.
They have Vilma.
Yeah, Jonathan Vilma.
Jonathan Vilma. That's right. And to go ahead and beat that team, it was sweet. And again, that was their first title since 1968. So that title drought ended then. That was great. The 2014 team, again, that was one no one saw coming because they're down to their third string quarterback. Braxton gets hurt in preseason, and everyone thinks, season's over. We're screwed. And then you lose to Virginia Tech, second game of the year. First, I was at that game, sitting in the student section, and I'm like, well, there goes this season. JT's didn't quite have it. And then they just run through everyone else. And then you go 59-0 against Wisconsin to get into the playoff. And then to beat Bama. Once they beat Bama, I knew the Oregon game was a wrap.
We both didn't even mention Cardell.
Well, yeah, I mean, Cardell, that's what I said, third string quarterback. It was absurd. And once they beat Bama, I knew that game was a wrap. Oregon did not scare me. Bama definitely was concerning for sure, considering they were at the top of the college football mountain at that time. And for Ohio State just to be able to basically, ding dong, the witch is dead after that game was over. And then to beat Oregon, take on that national title. And that title is certainly sweet. And that's why the 2015 team was so frustrating, because that team was as talented as any team. And they just screwed it up against Michigan State because Tim Beck's an idiot, quite frankly. That's why. So
they're trying to win JT a Heisman. That's what happened.
Well, they didn't
give the ball
screwing around with the quarterback position was what they were doing. They never should have had Cardell start. If they were going to have JT start the whole way, just start him the whole way.
And Zeke should have more than 13 carries.
Yeah, so that's why Tim Beck's an idiot. But yeah, thanks for the call in here. Appreciate you here.
No problem. I just wanted to ask one more quick question.
Good.
Who's y'all starter going to be next year? Because I keep seeing Carson Beck name floating around, and obviously, we got kid from Fresno and then Underwood. Who's going to be y'all starter? Because I've seen St. Clair. He looks impressive, but it's pretty rare for a freshman to come play right away. And then I know y'all got Sayin, who I like his tape. I like, I'm a Michigan fan, but I like football more than I am a Michigan fan, if that makes sense. So I like ball and all this shit. So I like Saint's tape coming out. And obviously he was supposed to go to Alabama. I wasn't all that high on Aaron Nolan or Jaden Davis. I wasn't high on either of those guys. So I ended up being right, fortunately. But I like Sayin, but I think he's got a little bit of a ceiling in terms of I don't think he's a physical freak like Underwood or, some of these guys that are, 6'4", 6'5", and, have the long arms and all that. So I just was curious about that. But otherwise, I appreciate the call. I'll hang up afterwards. Good luck against Texas. I'll be rooting for the Horns, but good luck against Texas.
We expect nothing less.
Call again anytime, man. I like you. You're good.
All right. Yeah, I'll try to be objective. I'm gonna be respectful if I'm gonna call in.
Appreciate that. But to answer your question, we had talked about, or I talked about that earlier in the show, the whole Carson Beck thing. Also, before I go ahead and get into this, just Ohio State basketball update. It's 28-23 at the under 4 in the first half. So Ohio State is winning. But Carson Beck, neither one of us want him to join Ohio State. This doesn't seem like the right fit. And, to the caller's point, Julian Sayin is not the physical freak that Tavian St. Clair is. Sayin's only 6'1", 200 pounds. It's not like he's Tavian St. Clair's a big dude. He's 6'4".
He's a grown man. He's a grown man's body.
He's a grown man, and he has really strong arms. I mean, 6'4", 225, compared to Julian Sayin, which he stands at just 6'1" and 203. So again, the physical tools are definitely more there for St. Clair. The one thing that concerns me is his competition in the state of Ohio. His school is a very small school here in Ohio. It's Bellefontaine, and it's out west. It's, they don't play some of the powers of Ohio, of the Ohio high school football scene. They don't play like Cleveland, Glenville, like everyone's heard of, Moeller, St. X. Those are much bigger schools. And his senior year, as far as them getting into the playoffs, they didn't really go anywhere. Now, again, his teammates, quite frankly, weren't very good. He didn't have a lot of weapons to throw to. His offensive line was mediocre. So that's definitely part of it. But if you're going to point if you're going to point to one concern for him, that's my concern. He's obviously killed every 7-on-7 or every camp he's been to, in the summer workouts. That's why his ranking got to number 2 overall in the country. But if I had to choose right now between him and Sayin, I'm just going to give a very, very slight edge to Julian Sayin, only because he's spent a year in the offense so far.
No, everything he said about Beck, I'm right with. Honestly, there's nothing he said that I disagree with. It's just that what we do know about Sayin, and to me, he's like a Caucasian Bryce Young. He's a very tiny guy. I mean, it is 203 pounds. Of course, is not small per se, but it's not like Russell Wilson is around 205, but he's a little bit thicker. You can see it, right? Kyler Murray around 205, but he's a little bit thicker. That's not Julian Sayin. Maybe he'll look like that next year. We'll see.
I'll get him with Marati for a little bit more time. He'll fall out to 50.
Either that or break his leg, like one or two. But sorry, Marati. I'm sorry. But it's the arm talent for Julian Sayin. That's what it is. If you go on X and type in his name, go to the video section, you'll see some practice footage of him, man. And yeah, he can throw that at weird angles. He can do it. It's kind of like if you remember Matthew Stafford when he first got to the Lions coming out of Georgia, a lot of people got on him because he's not just throwing you like normal motion. He's sidearming. He's doing a lot of crazy stuff out there with his arm. Julian Sayin has that type of potential and talent. As of today, I would say Julian Sayin, and I'd be very comfortable with that. But yeah.
Yeah, and I appreciate the call here, Mr. Harris. So it's the other reason why I say Sayin is a true freshman hasn't started for Ohio State since Braxton Miller in 2011, and that was a Luke Fickell year, and he just kind of had to. That's all they had. I mean, they had to throw him out there once Joe Bowserman was so bad. It is what it is. So it'd be incredibly rare for someone like St. Clair to come in and just start from day one. Mm-hmm. So here, before we get out of here, I want to hear your final prediction for tomorrow's game. I want score, how the game's going to play out. Give it to me all.
Texas is going to be around for about 1.5 quarters. I think Ohio State will go into halftime with less than a touchdown lead. I believe that the reason Texas is close is because their defense plays well enough in the first half. Also, I always believe that everything in life comes back to the mean. I don't expect this to be for the offense to keep hit on all cylinders for a third week in a row. I just my mind couldn't fathom that. If it happens,
Sure.
cool. Come third quarter, I think Ohio State puts it on them. They put it on them, grab a 2-score lead, and go into the fourth quarter, they drown them. They bring them into deep waters and drown them. Give me Ohio State 36, Texas 23.
Interesting. 36 is an interesting score.
Give me 20. Give me 20. 36 to 20.
Okay.
Yeah, 36 20.
For me, I kind of agree with you as far as Ohio State just blowing them out to start the game. I didn't expect that last game.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of expected against Tennessee, but to have it, like you said, a third week in a row, that might be asking a little bit much for even if they are the best team in college football. You can't expect them to play an A+ game, in the first half every single time.
Right.
So I will disagree with you as far as like how close they are in the first half. I think Ohio State has a 2-score lead going into halftime.
Okay.
And then I think that Michigan might get it back to 7 points, early in the third quarter. It depends on who gets the ball first. Like if Texas gets the ball first in the third quarter, I could see them maybe scoring first. And then after that, Ohio State just kind of pulls away.
Mm-hmm.
They're the more talented team. And I don't think Texas is just built to be able to come back if they get down by too many points.
Oh, no.
And I see Ohio State end in the third quarter, all of a sudden double digits, and then Texas starts to press, Ewers starts making mistakes, and all of a sudden things get out of hand. So all week I've been saying 35-17. I still feel pretty comfortable with that score. Would not be shocked if it was more of a blowout than that, though. I would not be shocked to see Ohio State win by a score of 45-17, 45-10, something like that. I would not be surprised.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I would be shocked if it's the other way. If Texas were to somehow win a blowout, that's not
going to happen.
Yeah, that would for me. One last question here before you go. Do you think Ryan Day has officially saved his job? Because I think he has.
I never thought he was losing his job.
I know you didn't. I know you didn't. I was just trying.
But I mean, but for the sake of the conversation, hell yeah, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He gets a lot of credit for doing what he's done.
Again, I'm gonna get some flack for saying this. It's okay. Again, I understand because I am a Buckeye who cares about the game. I understand that game is bigger than the Big Ten championship. It ain't bigger than the national championship, but it's bigger than the Big Ten championship. It's second. It's. I mean, before you even get to the national championship, you should be thinking about that game first off. If Ryan Day goes and wins the national championship, the guy will be 70-10. He's 68-10 right now. It's I feel like some people forget that we live in a world of show me. And something that Ryan Day has shown is that he wins games. I can't imagine in any profession where a guy is top of his profession in terms of wins, sales, whatever it is, marketing numbers, successful surgeries for a doctor. And then you fire him. Now, yes, there's more context because it's the Michigan game.
Yeah, that's the thing.
I live in a world of reality.
Look, those 4 of those 10 losses are to the only team that Ohio State fans really want to beat in the Big Ten.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, if he wins the national championship, there's no doubt he's got another job for 2-3 years. Then if he beats Michigan, he starts beating Michigan, then he'll have the job for longer than that. It's that simple. He's already saved his job for next year at least. He's done a great job. There's not much more I can say as far as what he's done here in the college football playoff to get these guys refocused and be able to do what they've done. It's been great. So hopefully you can keep that going tomorrow night. And
I'll say
real
it
quick,
again, man. Bama didn't cry when they lost to Auburn and they won a national championship.
Yep.
They didn't cry about it.
Yep. One last thing before we go. Who you got here in the game that's going to start here in 7 minutes? I still got Notre Dame. I'm assuming you still got Penn State.
Nope.
You don't have Penn State anymore?
Give me Notre Dame 17-14.
Wow. Okay. All right. I was going to say Notre Dame 2017. So we both got a 3-point game. It's going to be close.
I'm not confident in picking Notre Dame. I'm not. I really want Penn State to win. But
yeah, understand. All right. Well, we will be back with you guys on Monday to recap this game. Hopefully, we'll be doing a bit of a preview for a national championship. We'll see. But again, as I said last week, hopefully we're coming back on Monday smiling ear to ear just like we were following the Rose Bowl. So
Yeah.
we'll talk to you on Monday. Until then, OH.
IO.